Welcome to the miracles of Jesus. This week, we're not just focusing in our Devo time on miracles that Jesus did, but we're really trying to do a little bit of a deeper dive on the meaning behind those miracles. Remember, a miracle is nothing more than the interruption of nature. And if you study the Gospels, you'll see that Jesus repeatedly intervened and interrupted nature constantly by displaying his power through miracles. Nowhere more is that certain than when we see him interacting with a man who was born blind. Now, I talked about this a couple weeks ago in church, but if you remember, they came upon a man who was begging the disciples, and he was born blind. And he there was speculation going on by the disciples. They were like, hey, is this guy, is he blind because of something his parents did? Is he blind because of sin? What's he blind for? And this is what Jesus says in response. He says, it was not that this man sins, in John chapter 9, verse 3. It was not that this man sinned, or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. So then Jesus approaches the man. It's really an interesting story. It's kind of weird, and you don't want to tell it to young kids because they might replicate this. He spits, and he makes clay with the mud on the ground, and he rubs it in the dude's eyes, okay? So again, don't try this at home, folks, especially with the virus. Just not a good situation, okay? Don't loogie on somebody's eyes. That's not a good thing. So, and the man is healed, all right? Now, we know the story, we know what happens, and it's a miraculous thing, and people were like, this guy, people start to testify, this isn't the man that was begging, this guy can see, and it's crazy because he doesn't really know who Jesus is because he's never seen him, he's only heard his voice, and then we see him later in that situation, but whole other story. But the bottom line is this: what's the impact that this miracle story should have on us? Well, it's simple. God can overturn sickness, okay? Now, I want to be so careful when I talk about this, okay? Because there have been churches, and there have been people in different churches, and I love you if you come from a church with a background like this, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. It's my job to tell you the truth. It's your job to kind of make a decision with what the truth is. There are some churches that believe that a person can be healed of any sickness if they simply have enough faith. Okay? So I know some of you have heard that before, you've read that, and they'll say, well, this person, the reason why they're not wealthy is because they don't have the faith. Or the reason why this person still has cancer is because they don't have the faith. And the reason why this person is, their marriage didn't, last and their spouse left them is that they just didn't have enough faith. That's wrong. Okay? It's wrong on a million and one levels. Of course, faith is absolutely vital when it comes to the miraculous power that God unleashes in our lives. However, as soon as we start to put the pressure on ourselves to do or to not do something, we're removing God from the equation. And we say, well, it's something I'm doing. I just need more faith, more faith, more faith. More faith will make you act on the miracles that you know that God can do. But more faith doesn't make God any more or less miraculous, okay? So stop asking for more faith. Instead, ask God to allow you to exercise the faith that you already have, and ask God to show you by faith what his will is, because pay attention to what Jesus said in John chapter 9, verse 3. Jesus said, it's not the man or his parents that sinned. He says, but that the works of God might be displayed upon him. I have had the privilege over the years in ministry of talking to a lot of people that have now gone home to the Lord. And these are people that were filled with faith. And I can think of two different people, okay? There's one lady in our church, and she's been gone and home with the Lord so long that a lot of people in our church don't even know her. Her name was Mary. And, she's a really great member of our church, really awesome. Okay, she was diagnosed with this really terrible cancer. And I remember visiting her in her home. And I remember her knowing, she's like, I have stage 4 cancer. There is no stage 5. And we filmed her saying these things. And one of the things that she said, and this has stuck with me for as long as I've been in ministry, this stuck with me. She looked into the camera and she says, the thing about your faith and life and death is this. One thing I realize is that God is in control of all things. And that I know that I am going to outlive some people that consider themselves healthy. And that was absolutely right. Because God's in control, we don't know when our number is up. We don't know what day God has appointed that will be our day. And the truth is, if we start to say, well, if you have enough faith, I mean, you could get rid of that cancer. If you have enough faith, listen, Lazarus was raised from the dead, but remember, Lazarus died again. Okay? So just because we have faith that God can do great things with regard to our physical health, that does not mean that God is going to do the thing that we think he should. But what we must lean on is that God will receive glory and the works of God will be manifested in us if we seek him. God can overturn sickness. Yes, he can commit that miracle, but the greatest miracle that we have when we get sick or when we're unhealthy or when we get that diagnosis or when we get that prognosis, the greatest miracle is that we can glorify God and trust him no matter what he does.